It can and often is argued that on December 25th, 2020, the hip hop world was changed forever. Even to this day, many will say not for the better. However, sonically, the sound has veered, and massive upcoming artists like Yeet, Samasan, Ian, Nesband, and more would beg to differ. Christmas of 2020 was extremely odd. Not only had the world been plunged into an international pandemic just months before, but the day itself was more than unusual. Playboi Carti had finally dropped his much anticipated album, Whole Lotta Red, an album that had been hyped for years since its previous installment, 2018's Die Lit. Die Lit by far is a Carti fan favorite. Honestly, I would consider it the pinnacle of the Cash Carti era. Carti by this time not only survived the SoundCloud wave, but was showing signs of becoming something even more, especially with the company of producers like Pierre Bourne. The underground community was more than happy to appreciate the project that really encapsulated the scene as a whole at that time. So when Carti would drop Whole Lotta Red on December 25th, 2020, it was the first time in a long time that the hip-hop world froze. Would Carti be able to deliver?
Listening to this project, and I just want to say, the first song, I actually was laughing my ass off at the fucking song, just at how ridiculous sounding his voice was.
He sounds so much more goofy on these tracks than even Die Lit. Like, even Die Lit, bro, like, Carti was just, I didn't think he was saying much of anything, but he was just flowing.
There are points on this LP where I think he plays it a bit too predictable and also underwhelms with a supremely disengaged vocal performance.
Out of all my years as a hip-hop fan, there has never been such a polarizing date surrounding a project. This clearly was not the Carti that everyone was accustomed to. This was not Cash Carti, but Vamp Cardi. In the events leading up to the drop, Carti would drop snippets in his signature blood-dyed hair, wearing what seemed to be black feminine gothic clothing, nail polish, and fangs. Even in some records he would preview on Instagram, like New Tank, he would mention how people thought he was gay. Now, to be clear, there isn't anything wrong with homosexuality.
Why are you gay?
But it was an extreme far cry from the Carti that we knew just a few years ago. Furthermore, his sound was completely different. Carti over the years had built a reputation of stop-and-go rhythms that were fairly consistent. Less is more, you could say. Even though his previous snippets like Cancun had a positive reception when he did change his voice, other records like Meh and Pain 1993 did not. Nonetheless, Whole Lotta Red was nothing short of intense vocal inflections that were stuffed in abnormal melodies and pitches. The topic material was far more gruesome and violent, with the uttermost emphasis on heavy drug use and actual gang politics. Gone were the fun days of double cups, pretty women, and high fashion. However, Carti tried to play it off geet and sonically as just playful, but when you actually pay attention, what you hear is a clear and haunting intent with his delivery. I've always considered December 25th, 2020 the battle for hip-hop. Every big hip-hop content creator, blog, publisher, fan, interviewer, celebrity, and personality on every platform were covering it with mixed reviews. And the discourse between fans seemed even worse. Positive and negative reviews from fans would clash in the trenches that we would call the comments and threads of various platforms, debating if it was the most mind-bending thing to happen to the genre, or if it was even considered hip-hop at all, and even go as far as personally assault each other. With this reaction, not only did Carti effectively alienate half of his fan base, fans of the Cash Carti era, but he took a massive gamble on his career. Unfortunately, it didn't seem to pay off. 100,000 first-week sales are a colossal achievement for any artist. However, given the hype over the years, many thought that Carti would do more, and for now, it seemed that things weren't looking too bright. But this is the moment that typically separates Carti from other artists, in the event that I have coined the Whole Lotta Red treatment. Carti tends to have a habit where he will drop a record, but most likely an album, and receive negative or at best mixed reviews. It's only after some time, say a few weeks or months, the reception turns and becomes positive and then later considered a classic. It's hard to fathom now, especially with his younger audience, but as an example, I remember when Die Lit first dropped, the reviews were extremely mixed. Not many people liked this album initially, despite if you were to ask everyone now, they all claimed that it was loved from the beginning. But it was not. Only shortly after its release did it receive positive feedback. The song Poke It Out featuring Nicki Minaj, I believe, is the perfect testament to that. It was only when pandemic restraints were starting to lift, people were able to gather again, and concerts were being held, that people were able to see and experience Whole Lotta Red's full potential. Personally, I consider his 2021 Lollapalooza set as a turning point. The reason why is because this album was intended to be a live album, a project of which is only really meant to be performed live. Listening to it through headphones or speakers doesn't really emulate the full experience that the artist had intended when making the project. Another example, in my opinion, would be Sheck West's 2018 album Mudboy. Streaming it is alright, but listening to it live, the performance, it seems to be an entirely different project. Not to get confused, usually most albums sound better live, but specifically, these are albums that are tailored for live audiences and big groups of people. They tend to have repetitive lyrics and chants. Also, they're written in a way so that they're easy to follow, and more often than not are produced in a way that is live friendly. These are records that force an artist to have a great stage presence and know how to work a crowd. When making these projects, more often than not, the artist is primarily making the decision, do I want the crowd to mosh, or do I want them to jump up and down? It seems like a surface level thought, but actually is something many artists consider during the creative process by visualizing how the fans are going to react to the actual music in real time. On the contrary, a great example would be Sonnybabie. He has excellent music for when you're alone listening it through your headphones, but doesn't really seem to make music for the intention of hyping up a large group of people. But I digress. Lollapalooza was the perfect opportunity for Carti to show his fans truly what the project was meant to be. Upon further analysis, it seems that it goes even deeper. Back to 2018 and back again to Die Lit. Die Lit clearly was a live album in its own right. Furthermore, during touring and live performances of that album, clearly you can see that Carti prioritizes this aspect of his career more than any other. Think of Travis Scott as a comparison. The stage is where he draws his inspiration and comes to his conclusions. Here he's in control. In front of thousands, he's a leader and understands the unique and rare ability of show business. Can I pay you money to keep me distracted for a while? Literally, if you weren't able to pick that up from the music, you should have from the cover art. And you should have from a first music video from that project for R.I.P. In short, Whole Lotta Red was nothing more than just a continuation and even an extension of Die Lit. How much deeper could Carti go with the art of live performances? How much could he involve and immerse his live audiences with the mindfuck that was Whole Lotta Red and the Vamp persona that would complement it? The answer is quite far, and it didn't take long for him to get there. As for his Rolling Loud performance later that year, I consider his best performance of all time. We finally get to see King Vamp. We are now officially into the next era, and little did we know at the time just how much it would affect the entire hip-hop world. Clearly, the aforementioned artists like Geet would not be here if it was not for this album. There have been many analyses of how Whole Lotta Red was the pipeline to someone like him, bred the new generation of not only Carti fans but also rap, since if you listen to Carti, you most likely listen to Yeat and more. Producers like Filthy became so hot and so fast that their sound was considered industry standard. Furthermore, with the addition of Ken Carson, Destroy Lonely, and Homicide Gang, the creation of Opium put into motion for Carti and his fans to completely consume the underground world into a realm of dark fantasy delirium. Right now, it feels like you're either part of the Carti cult fan base or just an outsider. This is just how much it feels like they've taken over. December 7th, 2023, Carti once again would do his typical testing of the waters, with his entire marketing strategy is the carrot and the stick method, posting on X and Instagram cryptic messages. But this time was different. After touring for years with the Whole Lotta Red sound, people weren't sure what he'd be able to do next. In traditional Carti fashion, less was more. As he stunned the world with his high-pitched delivery a few years ago, he just simply this time would inverse and do deep impressions and inflections, which clearly had to be inspired by Future, and it worked. We were the first to be introduced to this new sound via Kanye West with records like Carnival. The two had a mutually beneficial relationship by that point since their collaboration of 2021's Donda, specifically with the record Off the Grid. Despite Kanye's nauseating reputation, especially at that time, he still proved to be invaluable as a collaborating musician. His unconventional approach to producing was only matched by Carti's even more unconventional approach to promotion, with records like 2024 being a massive hit in the underground scene, despite not being an official release. It was preceded by You're the Moon and followed by Hood by Air, which completely overtook the hip-hop and musical world. In my opinion, if this record officially had been released, easily would have been the highest solo charting hit Carti ever had. But this is where things don't make sense. The rollout was near to perfect. He had a new sound that was received well and proved that he could still revamp himself. He had massive features under his belt to keep him relevant between projects and a promotional sequence that literally had everyone sitting at the end of their seat. If Carti really wanted to drop this project then, there's no doubt in my mind he would have gone number one, but he didn't. At the time of writing this, and other than a few cryptic messages, some leaks, a website, a collab with The Weeknd, and an official release with All Red, which is his highest solo charting debut at number 15 on Billboard's Hot 100, there is no indication that we're getting IM music anytime soon. Which begs the question, why didn't he drop when everything was white hot? Was it legal matters, the label, his personal life? He does now have 2 children. What possibly stopped the biggest upcoming rapper in the world from dropping the most anticipated project since Astroworld? Again, we know the numbers would speak for themselves, even if we were to receive the Whole Lotta Red treatment, which I don't really think is going to happen this time around. The reality is, we may never know. But what we do know is that with the more features and the more music and the more leaks that he keeps putting out, his star continues to rise. And despite for what many may think is white hot, it's not the nuclear fission that is the expectation for Playboi Carti. He literally changed the trajectory of rap with his previous album, so now we have to ask what he believes he can accomplish with this one.